Welcome to Millennium Daily News. This is Ifat Fatima with top stories. Jeff Sessions approved as next U.S. Attorney General. 9/11 mastermind tells Obama attacks were America's fault. U.S. says it killed 11 Al-Qaeda operatives in Syria airstrikes. Prime Minister urges Islamic scholars to prevent Islam's misinterpretation. Finance Minister expecting $800 million loan from ADB. And India 206/2 at T in Bangladesh test. Those were the headlines, now the detail. The U.S. Senate has confirmed President Donald Trump's nomination for Attorney General, Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions, by a vote of 52-47. The confirmation follows a series of divisive hearings during which Democrats attacked Mr. Sessions' record on civil rights. Democrat Elizabeth Warren was silenced after recalling historic allegations of racism against Mr. Sessions. The Alabama senator's nomination was among Mr. Trump's most controversial. Voting largely followed party lines, with just one Democratic senator, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, voting for Mr. Sessions. Mr. Sessions' Republican colleagues in the chamber applaud him as their majority carried him over the line. He will now take charge of the Justice Department and its 113,000 employees, including 93 U.S. attorneys. The self-proclaimed mastermind of the September 11 attacks wrote to former President Barack Obama to tell him 9/11 was a direct result of American foreign policy and the deaths of innocent people it has caused. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's 18-page letter was addressed to the head of the snake, Barack Obama, leader of the country of oppression and tyranny. Defense Attorney David Nevin provided a copy of the letter, which has not yet been posted on the U.S. military's website for Guantanamo proceedings. He told AFP that Mohammed began writing it in 2014. The letter is dated January 8, 2015, but reached the White House only 2 years later, in the last days of Obama's presidency, according to the news reports, after a military judge ordered the Guantanamo prison camp where Mohammed is held to deliver it. President Donald Trump's order temporarily banning U.S. entry to people from 7 Muslim-majority countries came under intense scrutiny on a former federal appeals court that questioned whether the ban discriminates against Muslims. During a more than hour-long oral argument, a 3-judge panel of the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals pressed a government lawyer whether the Trump administration's national security argument was backed by evidence that people from the 7 countries posed a danger. Judge Richard Clifton, a George W. Bush appointee, posed equally tough questions for an attorney requesting Minnesota and Washington states, which are challenging the ban. Clifton asked if a Seattle judge's suspension of Trump's policy was overboard. Trump's Jan 27 order barred travelers from Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen from entering for 90 days and all refugees for 120 days except refugees from Syria, whom he would ban indefinitely. U.S. forces killed 11 members of Al-Qaeda in 2 airstrikes near Idlib in Syria this month, including a former ally of Osama bin Laden, the Pentagon said. Captain Jeff Davies, a spokesman, said 10 operatives were killed in a single strike on 3 February. A second strike on 4 February killed Abu Hani al-Masri, who had close ties to the late Al-Qaeda leader, he said. Al-Masri is said to have set up and run Al-Qaeda training camps in Afghanistan during the 1980s and 1990s. MPs have overwhelmingly agreed to let the government begin the UK's departure from the EU as they voted for the Brexit bill. The draft legislation was approved by 494 votes to 122 and now moves to the House of Lords. Shadow Business Secretary Clive Lewis was one of 52 Labour MPs to defy party orders to back the bill, and he resigned from the front bench. PM Theresa May wants to trigger from Brexit talks by the end of March. Viewers, now Millennium News on Bangladesh topic. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina reiterated her call to Islamic scholars, imams and teachers to prevent the misinterpretation of Islam and widely publicize that Islam does not believe in terrorism, militancy and killing people. It's my fervent call to you all, including imams, alim ulema, alongside teachers, to immensely publicize in mosques, schools, colleges and universities of the country that Islam is a religion of peace and it doesn't believe in terrorism, militancy and killing people. Please continue to do that as people attentively listen to your words, she said. The Prime Minister said this while addressing the National Imam Conference held at Bangabandhu International Conference Center in the capital. Chaired by Religious Affairs Minister Principal Matiur Rahman, the function was addressed among others by Planning Minister AHM Mustafa Kamal, Parliamentary Standing Committee Chairman on Ministry of Religious Affairs Bazlul Haq Harun. Awami League General Secretary Obaidul Qadir said public opinion, not the Prime Minister's choice, has been reflected on the new Election Commission formation. The public opinion has been reflected on the Election Commission. BNP will surely join the next election under the new Election Commission, he said. The Awami League leader made the comment as journalists drew his attention to BNP's allegation that the Prime Minister's liking has been reflected on the new EC. Talking to reporters after attending the signing ceremony of the third Shidalaka Bridge construction at a city hotel, Qadir also said the worth of the EC will be proved with its activities. State Minister for Foreign Affairs Mohammad Shahriar Alam expressed satisfaction over the increasing focus on Bangladesh by investors and businessmen of Singapore. He mentioned that investors from Singapore came forward to invest in 2 major power plants here. Shahriar said this when outgoing High Commissioner of Singapore Chang Heng Wingpate met him at his office. They also discussed various issues of mutual interest. The diplomat expressed gratitude for the support he received from him and from the Foreign Ministry during his tenure. The State Minister appreciated the efforts and contributions of the High Commissioner to strengthen the bilateral relations with Bangladesh. He also thanked the government of Singapore for hosting a large number of Bangladeshi workers and professionals. Ambassador of USA to Bangladesh, Marcia Bernicat, said they want to know a lot more details about government's proposal to resettlement Rohingyas to Hatia. Bernicat said this is the right time to put the real pressure on Myanmar to find a solution to Rohingya issue, as the US believes the solution lies in Myanmar. Now is the time to apply appropriate and true international pressure so that this issue can be resolved, she told reporters after her meeting with Road Transport and Bridges Minister Obaidul Qadir at the Secretariat. Earlier, Bangladesh sought international partners' supports in implementing the relocation plan of Rohingyas to Hatia by providing assistance in developing the island and transporting the Myanmar nationals living in Bangladesh to the new place of their residence. President Abdul Hamid called upon private university authorities to use education as a means of the nation's development and progress instead of making a money toll. Universities are the best centers of higher education, so every university should have an effort to build patriotic and educated human resources along with ensuring its standard of education, he said while addressing the 16th convocation of East West University on its campus in the capital. Stressing the need for linking education with works, he said acquiring knowledge is the main objective of education, but the education which is not work-oriented cannot encourage people at all. Delivering lessons in classroom as per curricula is not the only responsibility of a university, but as a higher education providing institution, it should educate students with social values, humanity, social responsibilities and tolerance, he said. Viewers, now Millennium Business News. Asian shares climbed to their highest in more than 18 months as investors grew more confident about China, while the dollar slightly formed in the wake of growing concerns over political instability in Europe. MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan gained 0.3% to their highs since July 2015, with Hong Kong, Taiwan and China among the region's best-performing markets. European stocks are set to follow Asia's cues, with spread bettors expecting a rise of up to 0.1% in Britain's FTSE, 0.2% in Germany's DAX and 0.3% in France's CAC. The man responsible for financial stability at the Bank of England has warned against relaxing banking regulations, saying that such a move could damage the global economy. Sir John Cunliffe told the BBC that lax controls risk undoing progress that had been made since the financial crisis. We have made very substantial progress since the financial crisis, increasing the resilience of the financial sector and increasing its ability to support the economy in times of stress, both nationally and in Europe and globally, including the US. Those changes were necessary. Sir John's comments come after suggestions that if Britain did not secure a good trade deal with the European Union following Brexit, the UK could become an offshore tax haven, encouraging businesses and banks to move to the country to avoid tougher regulations elsewhere. Finance Minister A.M. Mohid said that he would receive a loan worth more than $800 million from the Asian Development Bank in the current year from its $6 billion aid in pipeline. He expressed his expectation while talking to the reporters after a meeting with visiting ADB Vice President Wensai Zhang at the Secretariat. Mohid said Bangladesh also received $813 million as loan from the ADB in the last year. He said there is $6 billion of aid in the ADB pipeline for Bangladesh. He narrated they wanted to maintain the standard of the current flow of aid from the bank. Stocks recovered recently despite lower transaction during the most of the trading sessions, with investors focusing on large cap stocks. All the market indicators at Dhaka Stock Exchange and Chittagong Stock Exchange regained as prices of the majority of issues traded advanced on higher demand. But the daily transactions at DSE fell for 10 consecutive sessions from January 24. DSEX, the broader index of DSE, recovered by over 20 points to close higher at 5,363.09. The blue chip DS30 and the Sharia DSES also finished the session up at 1,961.85 and 1,257.29 accordingly. The day's transactions fell due to cautious trading by both the individual and institutional buyers. The daily trade value was Taka 576.22 crore, down by Taka 101.75 crore from Taka 677.97 crore, and the trade volume was 16.72 crore shares, down by 4.80 crore shares from 21.52 crore shares. Viewers, now Millennium Environment, Science and Technology News. A nanos device which can diagnose 17 diseases, including cancer and Parkinson's, based on smelling a patient's breath, paves the way for quick, non-invasive and affordable early detection, according to its Israeli developer Stuart McDill reports. The failure of early diagnosis of disease could be this simple. According to a team of researchers in Israel, the nanos, as they call it, can differentiate between 17 types of diseases with a single sniff, identifying so-called smelly compounds in anything from cancers to Parkinson's. The nanos uses artificially intelligent nanoarray sensors to analyze the data obtained from receptors that smell the patient's breath. Several companies are now trying to commercialize the technology and encourage its use in healthcare systems or see it incorporated into your smartphone. Microsoft Corporation has thought up another way to attract potential customers to its cloud computing service, deterrent against patient trolls. Companies new to the cloud are vulnerable to non-practicing entities, which do not make any products themselves but use their arsenal of broad technology patents to sue other firms in order to extract royalties or a cash settlement. The new offering could appeal to companies new to the cloud arena, needing a service such as Microsoft's Azure to store their data or host their mobile application. The Redmond, Washington-based company also said it would extend its existing promise to defend any customers sued over Azure to include the freely available or open-source technology incorporated into its cloud service. The U.S. Coast Guard worked to contain an oil spill caused by a leak on a tugboat along the northeastern coast of Florida, the Guard said. The Guard responded to a call at about 3:45 p.m. local time that a tugboat was leaking oil into the Halifax River in Ormond by the Sea, Florida, an oceanside community north of Daytona Beach, the Coast Guard in Jacksonville said in a statement. Coast Guard pollution responders got to the scene at about 6:15 p.m. local time and were trying to contain the spill and identify the source of the leak, the Guard said. An outbreak of yellow fever has claimed the lives of more than 600 monkeys and dozens of humans in Brazil's Atlantic rainforest region, threatening the survival of rare South American primates, a zoologist said lately. The monkeys, mostly brown howlers and mastitis, are falling out of trees and dying on the ground in the forest of Espírito Santo state in Brazil's southeast. The number of dead monkeys increases every day, said Sergio Lucena. He said of the impact of the disease's spread in his state, we now know that the rare buffy-headed marmoset is also threatened by the yellow fever virus and dying. The howler's sounds closely resemble grunts of barks. It was the silence that fell on the forest that first alerted farmers that something was amiss, sparking specialists to investigate. The mastiti is considered as vulnerable by the Swiss-based International Union for Conservation of Nature, which has placed it on its red list of threatened species. No evidence has so far surfaced of the affliction, failing woolly spider monkeys, considered one of the world's most endangered by the IUCN. Viewers, now Millennium Sports News. Murali Vijay was on 98 as India reached 206 for 2 at tea on the opening day of the one-off test against Bangladesh in Hyderabad. Vijay and Cheteshwar Pujara put on 178 runs from the second wicket to give the hosts control after they won the toss and elected to bat first. India's skipper Virat Kohli was batting with Vijay while fast bowler Taskin Ahmed and teenage spinner Mehdi Hassan had taken a wicket each. Opener Murali Vijay closed in on his 9th Test century as he and Cheteshwar Pujara laid the foundation for India's big first inning total on the opening day of the one-off Test against Bangladesh. Vijay was batting on 98 at tea with skipper Virat Kohli on 17 at the other end as India reached 206 for 2 after opting to bat at Hyderabad's Rajiv Gandhi International Stadium. Pujara added 178 for the second wicket with Vijay before being dismissed for 83 in what was Bangladesh's lone success in the second session, which yielded 120 runs. Bangladesh women's cricket team conceded a 67-run defeat against Pakistan in their Group B match of the ICC Women's World Cup qualifier at Pakia Suti Saravanamuthu Oval, Colombo, Sri Lanka. showing their bowling strength with skipper Rumana Ahmed's 3/40 to restrict Pakistan at 227/10 in 50 overs. Bangladesh batters could not tackle their opponents' bowling force as they finished for 160/10 in 49.3 overs, where spinner Ghulam Fatima captured 3 for 28 runs. Ayman Anwar made ODI debut in the match for Pakistan. The side elected to bat first after winning the toss. Ghulam Fatima of Pakistan was adjudged player of the match. Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez teamed up again to send Barcelona to a fourth consecutive Copa del Rey final after a combative 1-1 draw with Atletico Madrid that saw 3 players sent off. Suarez fired in a rebound from Messi's shot to put Barcelona ahead, but the Uruguay striker will miss the final after being dismissed for a second booking in the 90th minute of a game that helped his team to a 3-2 victory on aggregate. Suarez scored 2 minutes before halftime after Messi had dribbled through Atletico's defense and forced goalkeeper Miguel Moa to make a save. Messi almost added a second goal in the 77th with a free kick that rattled the crossbar before the match swung Atletico's way. Despite the elimination, Atletico coach Diego Simeone said he hoped his team could build on the strong performance, which also included a Griezmann goal incorrectly ruled offside and a slew of shots. Before ending, the headlines are once again. Jeff Sessions approved as next U.S. Attorney General. 9/11 mastermind tells Obama attacks were America's fault. U.S. says it killed 11 Al-Qaeda operatives in Syria airstrikes. Prime Minister urges Islamic scholars to prevent Islam's misinterpretation. Finance Minister expecting $800 million loan from ADB. And India 206/2 at T in Bangladesh test. This is all from the Millennium Daily Newsroom. To get any kind of news, please log into our social website facebook.com/millenniumtvusa and youtube.com/millenniumtvusa. Besides, to get the recent update of news, please visit to our daily website www.millenniumtv.org and www.millenniumtvusa.com. Stay with Millennium. Allah Hafiz.